Anxiety is one of the most common issues which we all face as human beings. I would like to do a quick overview of how I help clients navigate their way through it. To start off, the coaching or therapy space itself should be made as safe a space as possible, and the client's pace should be respected. We may not always want to go too quickly into material that might trigger the client. We might need to take our time. And the first thing I like to do is to normalize what the client is experiencing and explain that anxiety is something that all healthy humans experience, because we are human and we care about things. And my experience is that just this normalization, this reassurance on its own, can already relax the client. They may start to realize that their challenge is a challenge we are all sharing and struggling with. And experiencing anxiety does not mean there's anything fundamentally wrong with them in their essence. Now, of course, none of this is meant to trivialize the fact that for many who look for help, this normal, healthy human experience of anxiety has gotten out of control, and indeed can sometimes be quite debilitating. The obvious first thing to ask is, what is causing the anxiety? Often there is a proximate cause, something obvious that is happening in the client's life at the moment. We can explore this situation, understand it, process the emotions, and look for ways to navigate through it. But there may also be a deeper cause, something historic or of a long-term nature, which is shaping the client's reaction to current life events. A great question to ask a client is whether they are really responding to this current situation, or if they are perhaps responding to something that happened in the past. Personally, I adopt a temporal model where we explore the client's experience in 3 different time frames: past, present, and future. Why look at the past? Well, to state the obvious, a lot of anxiety we experience is due to earlier traumas we have had in our lives. Indeed, as I just suggested, when we experience anxiety and we dig deeper, we might find that we are not actually reacting to current circumstances, but we are reacting out of psychological patterns which were developed to cope with something which happened a long time ago, perhaps even in childhood. Going into our past and exploring where our anxiety originated from can be a powerful process. 2 broad things tend to happen. The first is understanding. When we get a full understanding of where our anxiety comes from, what the historical events were, and how they shaped our psychology, we can get a sense of liberation from those events. We realize that the anxiety that we are experiencing now is not our essence. It's not really us, but it is a pattern of reaction that was a consequence of specific historical events. And if different events had happened, we would have a different psychology, perhaps a calm and optimistic one. So understanding can give us liberation from what has happened. The second thing that can happen when we unpack these difficult historical experiences is a kind of desensitization. When we are courageous enough to revisit difficult experiences, we may find that each time we do so, we can relax a little more. We develop the ability to sit with these experiences. They start to lose a little bit of their power over us, and we start to process them. Another way to put this is that the heart starts to heal itself. Importantly, this is done in the company of someone, a coach or therapist, who is going to provide skillful support and empathy during this processing. And beyond merely being desensitized or healing old wounds, what I would like to offer to you is that some clients go further and create an empowering meaning around the bad things which have happened to them. A meaning which propels them forward. For example, the victim of abuse who is campaigning passionately to protect other victims of abuse. Or the artist who channels their life trauma into intense artistic expression which inspires others. The bad things which happen to us in life can become defining parts of us in an empowering way. As the saying goes, the greatest souls are seared with scars. The important fact to remember is that the past does not equal the future. Biography does not equal destiny. And you have the power to break historic patterns and create new ones on the way to building the person and the life you deserve. When dealing with anxiety, sometimes it can be best to look at the present and focus on skillfully dealing with the anxiety as it arises. It helps be prepared by asking pragmatic questions like, what are the triggers of my anxiety? How can I anticipate and be aware of these triggers? And what am I going to do differently the next time I get triggered? Now, of course, in the case of a very strong episode of anxiety, like an anxiety attack, the problem is that we get quickly overwhelmed and cannot remember the steps we need to take to counter the anxiety. So I work with clients to come up with a game plan, which they will have written down in the Notes app of their mobile phone or on a piece of paper in their back pocket ready to use. If they get an episode of anxiety, they can simply open the note and follow the instructions. What kind of things are in the game plan? Well, we will probably have a line in there where the client can remind themselves that an anxiety attack is going to peak after maybe 10 minutes or so and fade away thereafter. Thankfully, our nervous system simply cannot sustain extreme anxiety for long periods. You will eventually be peaceful again. We also recognize that anxiety is a physiological pattern, not just a psychological one, and we want to break that pattern through the use of an erect posture, through the use of grounding the feet and supporting the body with a solid, reassuring surface like the wall or this firm chair, and through the use of breathing exercises such as square breathing, which calm the nervous system. We might also want to use visualization exercises. For example, where the client visualizes themselves as an immovable mountain and the anxiety as a temporary violent storm whose waters just flow harmlessly off them. We might have some mindfulness exercises of a Buddhist sort, where we recognize that we are not our sensations, we are not our thoughts. They are merely objects of our awareness, and that these sensations and thoughts that make up anxiety are impermanent and will pass away like the storm clouds passing across the sky. We might use interrupting questions to interrupt the pattern of the anxiety. Questions like, what is really going on here? Or, my belief about this situation, the belief that's causing the anxiety, is it really true? Or, am I really responding to this current situation or to something that happened in the past? How do I let go of this? Or, what am I going to do differently now to the last time I experienced this? Or we might choose to refocus our attention away from the anxiety and towards what is good in life. Questions like, what can I be grateful for in my life? What can I be proud of in my life? What do I love doing? Who do I love? Who loves me? In our game plan, we might include empowering affirmations we can speak to ourselves. For example, everything I need is already within me now. Or, whatever life throws at me, I will overcome and turn to my advantage. Or that simple age-old wisdom, this too shall pass. These are just a sample, and there are many, many other helpful tactics. Listening to music, smelling your favorite scents, progressive muscle relaxation, body scanning, or simply doing what you know from experience relaxes you. We can have all of these and more ready in our game plan to help us relax and take back control. Finally, we might focus on the future. One of the main causes of anxiety is the lack of a compelling vision of the future, Or if you are lucky enough to have such a vision, a large gap between where you are now and that vision. Future-oriented coaching or therapy focuses on creating a beautiful vision of your life that fulfills your needs and embodies your values at the highest level, and then closing the gap between where you are now and this vision. Anyone can deal with difficult today if they have a compelling tomorrow. More generally, perhaps the best antidote to anxiety is action. Not shutting down and getting paralyzed, but moving in a forward direction, even if it's a bit scary and we don't yet know the ultimate destination. Progress is happiness, even if in the beginning it's only moderate progress. So to summarize, I believe in doing the best to create a space where the client can feel safe to express themselves at their own pace. I believe in normalizing the client's experience and reassuring them that their challenges with anxiety does not mean there is something fundamentally wrong with them in their essence. We all experience anxiety. I also believe in a temporal approach to addressing anxiety. Sometimes it can help to explore the past and understand what happened that created these patterns of anxiety, gaining insight and liberation through this understanding. Sometimes it is better to be pragmatic and focus on the present and on techniques which can be employed to better manage anxiety when it arises. And sometimes it can be good to focus on the future, on the compelling life the client wants to create, one with meaning and fulfillment and joy, one that is going to pull them forward out of anxiety. In practice, of course, we are likely to move back and forth between these three time frames as needed. We can all benefit from understanding our history and ourselves better, from managing our emotional states more skillfully in the moment, and from creating the life of our dreams. We are never going to have a life completely free of anxiety. It is, after all, a part of being a caring human. But we can build a life full of meaning where the dominant emotions are ones of peace, hope, and joy.